Hey family, it's Chelsea, or technically Odera, and today I'm going to be showing you how I make roasted butternut squash and Brussels sprouts. This recipe is nothing fancy. I'm literally just roasting some vegetables, but I use it in sandwich recipes, and there's another recipe that I make from this, which I think I'll eventually film. It's basically this with chicken and peanut sauce. Very delicious. But without further ado, let's get into what you'll need to make this dish. You'll need a bag of shaved Brussels sprouts, some cubed butternut squash, olive oil, black pepper, and salt. You'll also need some parchment paper and a baking tin and a mixing bowl and a quarter cup, I think, for the olive oil, and a quarter teaspoon for the salt and pepper. Alright, so now we're ready to go. We're just gonna empty our vegetables into the bowl. You definitely want, a very big bowl because you're gonna need room to mix everything. I wonder if this bowl ends up being big enough, because I have a tendency of getting the smallest bowl that is big enough to hold what I'm cooking or mixing, only to realize that the bowl is usually just too small. So I don't know why I have that tendency. This is one of those bowls or times that you want to get a bigger bowl than what you think you'll need. Once you get the butternut squash in there, then you're gonna empty in the Brussels sprouts, get it all in there. Like I said, this bowl is just barely covering it. Yeah, that's what I thought. But we'll see. I think we'll make it work. So now we're going to add in the olive oil. Now on this channel, if you haven't kind of picked up already, we're a little calorie conscious. It's not do or die. That's just how I am as a person. So if you don't really care too much about calories, you can drizzle the olive oil on there. It won't really get too greasy because all the excess olive oil will basically fall to the bottom. But I will say, the more olive oil you add, in my opinion, it does get more delicious, more rich in taste. But there is a sweet spot with the olive oil where you're more likely to get crisp Brussels sprouts as opposed to rich and creamy Brussels sprouts. I'll just say that. My recommendation, if you are trying to count calories or whatever, is to do a quarter cup for this amount of vegetables. But if you don't care, then you don't care. I wouldn't do less. I'll just say that. I wouldn't do less because I really was pulling back. I think when I first made this, I just kind of drizzled it on. But to make this recipe, I measured it. And I wouldn't do less than that because that's really cutting it close. But yeah, mix with your hands is my favorite part about cooking. Touching the food with my bare hands. I love it. I live for it. I love recipes that call for this. So you want to mix. And honestly, I don't know, I probably should have done this before mixing so I didn't have to wash my hands midway. But you want to add your seasoning. Now again, if you're a seasoned chef, why are you watching this channel? But then maybe you're an almost seasoned chef, maybe you're seasoned but not certified, you can pretty much just dust on the seasoning and put in as much as you think you'll need, and you'll probably be fine. But for those of us who are pure beginners, which is who this channel is truly for, I do encourage you to just measure, just so you don't end up putting in too much, which will make your food more or less inedible, and you don't end up putting too little, which is not the end of the world, but is a little disappointing. If you put too little, you might think that the food doesn't taste very good, when in fact you just didn't season it all the way. Mind you, this dish, I wouldn't call it a standalone dish. As a meal, I think it's a great snack. You're also not, well, I personally would not eat this whole bowl. I think this breaks down the way I usually do it. This kind of breaks down into 4 servings if you want to put this in a sandwich, and 2 servings if you want to serve this with peanut sauce and chicken. So yeah, but hey, if you're vegan, I guess you could just eat the whole thing, and that's lunch. Like, I don't know. But yeah, so it's not the most intriguing standalone dish, but it is kind of delicious on its own. I haven't had much experience eating Brussels, not just Brussels sprouts, but butternut squash like this. I've heard a lot about like butternut squash soup, or I guess butternut soup, something like that. But eating it like this, I haven't really experienced that, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's a very, very nice vegetable. All right, so now we're going into baking. All you want to do is lay out your vegetables on the pan. You could kind of argue that I should have done this in 2 batches. You know, that would have been a fair argument to make. Yes, you could argue that, but for those of us with a limited amount of time and a limited amount of patience, you really can do this in 1 batch, I would say. That being said, I think when I first started making this recipe, I specifically made this to add into a sandwich, and what I would do was I would actually bake the butternut squash separate from the Brussels sprouts, and I wish I continued doing that. It's just easier to mix it all together, but I kind of wish I had continued doing that because they bake differently. What I would do when it comes out is I would mash the butternut squash and keep the Brussels sprouts intact. And I don't know, I do think that it came out much better. I think the Brussels sprouts were able to crisp better. But if you're pressed for time, this will certainly do. Anyway, we're starting at 359. I don't think that I preheated this oven. That's fine. They don't take too long to cook. This is not like spaghetti squash. Yeah, I don't, okay, no, I didn't preheat the oven. So they don't take too long to bake. Again, this is not spaghetti squash that needs a very long amount of time, but we'll see how long it takes without having preheated my oven. Oh, I guess it's coming out. I guess it's coming out. So a quick note on what you're looking for, because one thing I try to teach on this channel is that you don't need to bake according to time. Time is a good reference, but you don't bake according to time. You bake according to whether or not your food is done. And you do want some brown spots on the Brussels sprouts, and you want the butternut squash to mash kind of better than that. I think it probably would have been, like I said, a lot more effective if I baked them separately. I firmly believe that, but I still got the mash at the end of the day. As you can see, that's kind of what you want. Close to a mashed potato, you know. Well, maybe I think mashed potatoes are far more creamier, but you know what I'm saying, like a soft potato or something, a boiled potato. And you definitely want the Brussels sprouts. You don't want them burnt. I don't know if some of you might think the Brussels sprouts look burnt, but you don't want them burnt. You just want them crisp and slightly browned. Remember, wow, that was close to an hour. Wow, I don't even know what to say. The closer that your food gets to a blackened char, the more carcinogens are in your food. So you don't want, you know, something super burnt, okay? You just want a tan, a nice tan from the Caribbean, you know? Anyway, as you can see, I've portioned off about 1/4 of what I made and put it in a bowl, and you can eat it like this as a snack. I'm telling you, it's delicious. But I'm actually about to film a sandwich recipe that I will put this into, and it was so delicious. I loved it so much. Here's the price per meal breakdown. Per serving, it would count in the $5 or less category, so that's why I'm gonna put it there. And hope you're having a nice day. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.